Hey everybody, so I just wanted to take a minute to go through our memoir writing prompts and assignment. And I wanted to go through it just so that you had an idea what you are going to be doing in this unit. It's not going to be due for a little while. It's actually going to be due October 9th, but we'll be working on it over the next few weeks. And I want you to have an idea of where we're going so that you know how to get there. So, just to give you a quick overview, memoir writing is all about figuring out who you used to be and how you got to who you are now. It's a great way to look back at a specific piece of your life and explore your emotions and your choices. We are going to first start our unit by taking a look at Ellie Weisel's memoir, Night. And when asked why he became a writer, Ellie Weisel responds by saying that he felt like he needed to tell his story for those who weren't able to survive to tell their stories. He says, I owe my roots and my memory. I'm duty bound to serve as their emissary, transmitting their history of the disappearance, even if it disturbs, even if it brings pain. Not to do so would be to betray them and thus myself. Ellie Weisel feels very strongly about the need to tell his story. What stories do you feel strongly about? What is a story that's important to who you are as a person? In what ways can you tell that story so it will not only be believed but also remembered? So, you are a witness to history. It may be your own history, but you are a witness to history and your story deserves to be told. So that's what this whole entire unit is all about, is figuring out how to tell our story the best way that we can. So you're going to be given the opportunity to write a personal memoir about a memorable moment in your life or multiple memorable moments that fit under one theme. You will choose one specific memory or theme to write about and include details to paint a picture of your experience. So, I've included a timeline on the memoir writing assignment instructions. Basically, we start our unit. We're going to start by taking a look at Ellie Weisel's memoir, Night, to see what a great memoir looks like and what are the key components of a great memoir. And then around September 30th, we'll begin brainstorming. Then you'll submit a brainstorming worksheet. Then you'll start working on your memoir. Then you'll have some peer editing. And then you'll make up those final revisions. And then the final draft of your memoir will be due October 9th. So all of the instructions, everything you need will be up on Moodle, so don't worry about that. But just, I wanted to go over this just so you have a basic idea of what you need to do. Basically, you are going to write about an experience that has affected you deeply and that you feel ought to be known by others. You should write a memoir that is approximately 3 to 5 pages double spaced. But you guys know me. I'm more about the creative process and more about the experience of writing than a specific page length, but I have to give you a page length so you kind of know what to shoot for. Basically, you can write slightly more or less than that page count. If it's less, though, make sure that it covers the memory in great detail and meets the expectations below on the rubric. So there's a rubric here for you so you know what I'm marking. But like, honestly, guys, if you write me a 2 page memoir and it is like vivid and uses great descriptions and is really interesting and engaging and creative, I'm not going to be a stickler for that like extra page. Also, if you are just so passionate about the memory that you are describing and it takes you like 7 pages to write it, that's okay with me too. If it's more though, make sure that it's not just long because you weren't able to condense or edit, but because each statement has a point. That it really does drive home the central theme behind your memoir. I don't want it to be long just for long's sake or to be short just for short sake, if that makes sense. Either way, whether it's long, short, right on the money, it should meet the expectations below. And just as a reminder, this is worth 15% of your final grade for this course. So I have included a whole ton of prompts. They're on page 3, and there's so many of them. I had to make the font small so that I could fit them. So you can use any one of those prompts to inspire you, or if you have another memorable moment that you want to write about, feel free, go ahead. The prompts are just there to kind of help you. In whatever story you decide to write, though, you should answer the questions: what happened? Why did it happen? What were your thoughts about the story at the time? What are your thoughts about the story now? How does this story relate to the way that you see yourself and others? What lessons do you want to teach people, or does your story teach people? Definitely make sure that your memoir has a title and a name, and it should be written in first person perspective, like I did this, I saw this, I felt this. And if you decide that you'd like to include images, like let's say you have pictures of that really great memorable moment and you want to include them, you can. However, that doesn't count towards your length. So I suggest adding pictures afterwards in your final draft so that you know that you've written enough information. So there's a whole ton of prompts, from an object that's special to you, to a secret that you need to tell, to a time when you encountered death of either a loved one, an animal, or a stranger, or maybe an accident or a time when you got hurt. It could be whatever you want, something memorable, but there should be like an overarching theme or idea or point. I would say, think of it kind of like this. Your memoir is a little bit like a first person perspective parable. So, you know, in the Bible, when Jesus told parables, he was telling a story, but he was trying to make a point. So, he was telling a story about maybe the prodigal son, but really, the point he was trying to make is that we are like the prodigal son and God is like the father in the story. So, whatever memorable thing you decide to write about, there should be some kind of point that you want to get across. You can write about like what your life experience was when you moved to Africa, if you moved here from somewhere else. Or you could write about your earliest memory, or a conflict, or something that you do all the time and you've learned from, or whatever. You really, guys, it's up to you. You can write about whatever you want as long as it's memorable and it has a point. So I'm not going to go through the whole entire rubric, but just so you have an idea of what I'm looking for, your memoir should be about a memorable moment. So it should focus on a single moment that is very clearly significant. Like, what's the point? Basically, I don't want to get to the end of reading all about the first time you made spaghetti and be like, yeah, what was the point? Like, who cares? But if you are writing about the first time you made spaghetti and it's because you used your grandma's recipe who had recently died and you missed her, and making the spaghetti reminded you of her and reminded you of how important it is to write down things and to make memorable moments with people, well, then I care about the spaghetti. Does that make sense? Your memorable moment or memoir, it's a lot of M's, should have a hook. The hook should grab the reader's attention and should be interesting. It should be something that I read the first paragraph or the first sentence and I'm so excited to continue reading and I'm interested, not just something that is there and it doesn't really fit with the overall arching theme. I should also be able to know or answer the so what. So that's what the so what or theme is. Basically, everybody's memoir should have a theme or an overall point or central idea. And it should be interesting, evocative, and important, and it should be developed throughout your memoir. And the reader should be left with that message long after you read it. So, for example, if you were to write a memoir about the importance of education, similar to Malala. If you've ever read her memoir, she writes about, she's from Pakistan and she got shot when she tried to stand up for women's rights to get education. And after you read her book, you are inspired and challenged and encouraged. And I remember reading her book and thinking, wow, I am so lucky that I get to receive education. I better really use my education wisely. So, what is the central theme or point? What is the so what? Also, you should be thinking about word usage. So, your vocabulary should be precise, vivid, and paint a clear and complete picture in the reader's mind. Strong descriptive verbs should be used to show things instead of tell. And we're going to talk more about how to show versus tell later. So, for example, if you say, he was angry, that's telling me he was angry. But if you say he stormed in and slammed the door, you don't even need to tell me that he is angry. I can just see it. You're showing me that he's angry through your words. So we're going to talk about that more, but your memoir should show instead of tell, and it should use precise, vivid, clear, complete vocabulary that is appropriate for the context and for what you're doing. I'm also going to be looking for literary devices. So we've learned all about those. Now it's a chance for you to continue implementing those. They should be used in creative, surprising, and inspiring ways or throughout your memoir. I'm also going to be looking for language conventions. So have you used grade level or appropriate? Spelling, grammar, punctuation. Does it contain few, if any, errors that don't interfere with your message? Is it written in first person perspective in an interesting, creative way? So again, your memoir should be a memorable moment for you, not somebody else, but for you. And so I'll be looking for that. I'll also be looking that your work demonstrates a complete understanding of the assignment in a creative way, that you include all of the elements like a title, your name, the memorable moment, that shows and versus tells, etc., and that's done throughout your writing. And then finally, we'll also be looking for your creativity. Basically, that your personality and voice comes through clearly and strongly. I want to hear something that sounds like it was written by you, um, with your personality, your perspective coming through clearly throughout your memoir. So that's basically an overview of the memoir assignment and how we're going to be our own witnesses to history and write those down. I'm looking forward to reading each of your memoirs and helping you as you work on it. Remember, I'm always here to help you if you have questions. And without further ado, let's dive into our memoir unit and take a look at Night by Elie Wiesel and see how his memoir does all the things that our memoirs should do and more.